What's your reaction to the latest on this?
You know, Molly, it simultaneously feels like a massive deal, and yet I'm underwhelmed.
Yeah.
Let me explain. The names that we're hearing, obviously, that's huge. North Carolina, Duke, Kansas, you just heard Doug Kazarian, Michigan State, Texas, on and on. Those are massive names. But I'm underwhelmed because that's all? A dozen? You're telling me that only a dozen teams in college basketball so far are named in cheating, in paying players, or being involved in recruiting players who have, improperly accepted benefits from an agent already? No, it's not just a dozen, and it won't be when this is all said and done. They're big names. Dennis Smith Jr., Kyle Kuzma, Markelle Fultz, but you're telling me that's all? I mean, these guys were big recruits, but they weren't necessarily the biggest recruits every year. So you're telling me there's not going to be bigger names when this is all said and done? No, there's going to be bigger names. And here's a real key. How about the amount of money we're talking about? I mean, that's a real eye-opener to me. Yeah, you got Dennis Smith Jr. getting, $43,000, could have been as much as $73,000, but most of the payments were $10,000, $3,000. I think Kyle Kuzma was $3,000, $1,000. I mean, this agent kept a ledger where Carlos Delfino got $71.39. This agent was keeping up with how he was going to get paid back for $71.39, which in and of itself, by the way, is just mind-blowing, but he was that minding his numbers that he penciled in $71.39 for Carlos Delfino. So the numbers have got to be bigger. There's bigger money being traded out there. So I feel underwhelmed, but it feels like a tremor before an earthquake. I know at the end of this shakeup, college basketball could completely be changed. It's just not yet.
Well, that's the biggest issue. The fact that at the end, when all is said and done, that college basketball could completely be changed. That's what you get from this, because the FBI, they're coming. When you hear that 4,000 calls have been intercepted over the last 300 and over a 330-day span, and you imagine the phone calls that take place between agents, with sneaker companies, with administrators at programs, with coaches and others on the next level or what have you in terms of the NBA, or executives rather. You just never know. And then you got to take into account, Will and Max, the actual programs that have been mentioned. We may not think much about USC when it comes to basketball. Shaka Smart just got at Texas. Some of this stuff obviously was before then. But you also have to think about this. Roy Williams, for example, because you mentioned North Carolina. Got to remember, even though this has absolutely nothing to do with it, do y'all remember when Rashad McCants, who helped North Carolina capture a national championship in 2005, he talked about how tutors were taking classes for the students and going to classes for them, and how there were bogus classes on the transcript and all of that other stuff. When you have stuff like that going on, and then you hear about stuff like about money changing hands and what have you, you're just sitting back and saying, damn, what else is coming down the pike? What else has been going on? What the hell else are you doing? And then you hear the name North Carolina, so you think Roy Williams. You hear Duke, so you think about Mike Krzyzewski. Well, what comes to mind with Mike Krzyzewski? You think about the big-time recruits that this man has. This was a man that was once totally against one-and-done dudes. Now he's leading the pack and capturing them, for crying out loud. And so you wonder about stuff like that when it comes to him. My man Tom Izzo, my favorite coach in college basketball. We all know about the scandal that's really raked through Michigan State because of that despicable individual, the former gymnastics coach who will spend the rest of his rotten life in prison. We all know about that. So it's one thing where you have the specter of that scandal, which Izzo and D'Antonio and these boys haven't really spoken about. But now this is something you have to speak about. When the FBI, has an investigation because of the agent Andy Miller, and you see Miles Bridges' name on there. Well, Izzo's not going to be able to avoid not talking about that. So think about this, guys. Krzyzewski, Roy Williams, Tom Izzo. And then we all know what happened with Rick Pitino. My God, who knows what's going to happen to college basketball when all of this is said and done.